Greetings everyone, and welcome back to Pep Organ. Today I'm sitting here with Daniel Roth, one of our great French organists in the world. Here at Sydney Town Hall, he's just presented an organ recital for us to the city. We had an audience that was completely sold out, and Daniel played a number of fantastic repertoire, including works of Widor and Vierne and Bach and Franck. Daniel, it's lovely to have you here in Sydney.
Thank you very much.
Now, for my YouTube channel, a lot of what I talk about on the channel is playing music from the heart. I believe a lot in music that speaks to our audiences, and so when I play, I think about what the audience is going to hear, both in terms of what the stops are going to sound like downstairs, but also how they're going to feel when I play my music. Do you feel this way as well when you perform?
Yes, I think it is extremely important that we interpret the beautiful works of our great organ literature, which has so many beautiful works, but we have to interpret these works, and we should not only play the notes. Unfortunately, we have an instrument, the organ, which if we don't do what we have to do, it can sound like an awful machine, an awful machine without breathing, without articulating. So it is really important to make the instrument sing. And how can it sing? It is sure that it's the instrument the most difficult to have sing, because we have to push down a key and completely, and when we leave the finger, the sound is over. We have no possibility of doing some expression on the sound. The intonator of the organ has made the sound once forever.
Yes.
Now this is a problem. Now how can we make this sound being expressive? It's only with the time, with the value of the notes, and with the articulations. We have the possibility at the organ to do the most perfect legato. All sounds are tied together. When one key is down, and the other has to speak, so the first key has to go up. And so there is a perfect legato. But by doing this perfect legato, all sounds sound the same.
Yes.
Or in a music piece, every sound must have its personality. And so we need to have accents, we need to breathe, we need to and so on.
It's a really good point. When I was learning the organ, I studied with Philip Swanton, who was an expert in early music, and that we learnt a lot about articulation from Baroque technique. And when you played the Bach today, you actually did a lot of articulation. And sometimes we think that French organists just legato everything, but you had a lot of touch in your performance as well. I wanted to ask where you came up with some of your interpretation for J.S. Bach.
Yes, I learned first organ in my own hometown in Alsace, where I am born. This is in the east of France, Alsace. And Mulhouse is at the south of this very nice region, where there are amazing a lot of beautiful organs. It's very, very famous. So I was there. I learned perfect legato, and then I switched to Paris, and I entered the Conservatoire Supérieur in the year 1960. Then I got first student of Maurice Duruflé for the harmony, And 1 year after, I entered the organ class, and for this entrance exam, I was trained by a wonderful student of Marcel Dupré, Roland Falcinelli. But this was in the pure legato. I had to play everything
with Dupré.
Dupré was already retired at the time. I entered in 1961. Dupré was retired, and Roland Falcinelli was the successor of Marcel Dupré. And she went on teaching this the way, of
similar
playing
style, yes.
by Dupré. And Dupré came from the tradition of Lemens, from Brussels, which was the pure staccato, the perfect legato, perfect legato, and staccato being half of the value, of the notes. This was the technique of Dupré. So I learned with her, and I am still very grateful because she learned me very much about this way of playing for the whole literature with Widor, with Vierne, Tournemire, all these composers. We have to play their music, how they conceived it, and then conceived it in the pure legato and the staccato. Okay. But so when I went out of the organ class, this was in 1963, and at that time in Haarlem, in Holland, they had some years. They have started some years ago the Academy of Haarlem. Every summer there was an academy of organ playing. Summer course, and this summer course you had teachers like Anton Heiler. I don't know if you know this. He was a great Austrian organist, Anton Heiler. Luigi Stagliavini was a great Italian master, and Marie-Claire Alain, which was a famous organ teacher from France. And this academy and these teachers really did study a great lot, all the old text about interpretation, about articulation of the old masters, and it is sure that the organ playing until the end of the 18th century, was a playing which was articulated, the legato was not a strict legato, it was articulated. So you had the difference between strong beats, weak beats,
Yes.
You had all these wonderful articulations, 2 notes with an articulation and so on. And so they came back with all this. And I really, when I went with my first prize out of the organ class of Paris, I did want to learn about the touché,
yes,
of the old masters. I kept absolutely the way of playing Widor and so on with the legato, and I think this should be today the way of playing of the organist. When he plays Mendelssohn, it should be a certain touché. When he plays Buxtehude and Bach and so on, again we have to study the real touché of this time. And then Franck, this is also a different touché than the Lemens. Franck did not at all accept the absolute legato of Lemens. Like Saint-Saëns. Saint-Saëns was also absolutely against Lemens. He did not get along with Lehmann's way of playing the organ. You know that Saint-Saëns did not play with the heel; he played only with the toe. And the pedal, because he was a student of Boilly.
Yes,
right. And Boilly is still a musician in France who still played like the old masters.
Yes, right.
Yes.
So maybe there's two different competing schools in the French tradition of articulation.
Yes. Yes, of course.
Yes. But you study both of them to understand the different composers as well.
Yes. For me, I am really in the way of singing of Nicolaus Harnoncourt. This great master of music interpretation in Austria. Really, we really must say the composer is the highest authority for us. And when we play his works, we should absolutely do everything to go as near as possible to the aesthetic of this composer. And this, of course, is then the way of making the registrations. We should know the most perfect possible what kind of organ Buxtehude played, Buxtehude wrote music, Bach wrote music for what kind of organ, and then César Franck, the Cavalier Choral organ, and so on. This is the first one. Then we should know about the touché. How did the composer intend the way of playing, the touché, and at the end, how it was about agogic. Rubato, some composers really, express themselves with great rubato. This was the case of César Franck. We know that César Franck played with a great rubato. He expressed himself with rubato. Widor was not at all the great rubato, but Widor was a very sensitive interpret. He used a lot agogic. He wrote in a text. If you play straight the notes, the listener can sing to his daily problems. But if you try to interpret the phrase, if you breathe, if you put the accents where they have to be put, if you give from your heart, this is all what he says, then the listener listens to you.
Well, I think one of the reasons people enjoy your playing is because you do take that message very seriously, I think, with Widor, but all the performances that you play, you express yourself as well, I think, through the music. Maybe it's a dialogue between Widor and yourself when you play.
Yes.
Yeah, because your music is when you play, it's very expressive too. There was something you were saying a little bit earlier about melodies, perhaps in works like the Widor or the Franck, not to play them strictly, but sometimes the melody guides the accompaniment, the other parts. And then the time is not strict. Is that the case?
Yes. Yes, of course. When I played the Grande Pièce by César Franck, of course, you have these wonderful passages andante with this beautiful melody, and what is this melody? It is like a voice, like a prima donna singing, and Franck was inspired by the voice, he wrote this music, in Sainte Clotilde he had in the positive a clarinet, which was very loud. They all say the musicians who heard César Franck, they said it was a very big clarinet who did sound very loud, this was like a prima donna, so this clarinet, but you should not play the notes straight, as I said previously, especially in passages, lyric like what I said, you know, the melody has to be like when a prima donna is singing, you know, so you have the high notes, you know, you must stress the high notes, and so on, you know, accents, non-accent, you know, and
there are parts of the music where the organ is like a singer and needs to breathe as well.
Of course,
yeah.
Of course.
Yes, very important.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, we're here at the Town Hall, and you've just played some French repertoire here. So what was the challenges of playing that music here on the Hill and Son English organ?
Yes, yes. First of all, I must say I like very much this organ. You know, it's a very, very beautiful organ, and because it is possible to do all kinds of beautiful sounds for different repertoire. So on this organ, you know, I think I try, and this is what I try on every organ. On every organ, when I arrive, you know, I try to remember the original sound, and I try to approach as near as possible the original sound. That is a very important question, because only if we do this, the result will be good. You know, if we don't, if we are too far from the original sound, the result will not be good. You know, and so here, you know, I think it's a traditional English organ, you know, from 1890, Hill. So I think I tried to get as near for the French sounds. An example. You know, there are 4 diapasons in the grade. 4 diapasons, very different. The first one is a very big diapason, and then there are less. So I think for getting approximatively the sound of the grand fond of 8 foot by Cavaillé-Coll, I think the diapasons 1, 2, and 3 are too much, you know. So I generally I took the diapason number 4 with flutes, you know, because of our foundations in France are very typical, you know, and the measure of the pipes is very, very important, you know, and our montre, which are the principle of the French organ, they sound like flutes, you know. They are go to the flute. So you have the montre, very much. Then after you have the diapason, which is a little bit less, and the third you have the German principle, which is the most narrow pipe, you know. And of course you have to consider this, you know, if you want to be as near as possible.
Excellent. Well, Daniel, thank you very much for your recital and for speaking to us as well on the YouTube.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.